Hello there, my name is Logan, but you can call me Copycat99. Back at it with another deck tech. This time I'm going to go over my take on Dedra Blue. I've done various forms of red-blue hard control on the channel before, primarily Boss Blue, you know. I was a Boss Blue enjoyer before Han Yellow made me regret everything. Like, yeah, maybe reconsider what I wanted to play. But I still am a big fan of the archetype, and I do play it like this is, it's been a core of, like, one of my decks in Trilogy, stuff like that. But Dedra Blue is one of the best, probably the best red-blue control deck we've had in the game. It is very, very strong in some matchups. And the Dedra's leader ability just screams value. Like, the longer the game goes on, Dedra exerts so much value for a one-resource leader ability. So why not Colossus? You might ask. I think Colossus is a totally valid way to build this deck, by the way. I just like Colossus because it makes Chilton worse, and I'm a big fan of Chilton right now. I like Chilton plus Dedra is actually a really fast clock, being able to threaten a lot of damage. And then it makes Daring Raid plus Dedra ability when they don't let you draw on turn one worse. Like, you end up a little low on cards even with Dedra's ability to draw, and you end up with probably not a Raid 2 on your Dedra when you flip if you go for that line, which is annoying. And yeah, like, on Dagobah, you usually have more cards in hand on your flip on the average game, so your Dedra gets Raid 2, and it can start clearing most things. Alright, so first up, we've got 3 the Client. I think a big proponent of Dedra is being able to justify these, like, cheaper interaction pieces. Because, like, you've got a small leader ability. You utilize spare resources very well, and your leader ability draws you cards. So being able to just, like, be on 7, sit down a Client, and then, like, hold up interaction for a foul or a takedown or a open fire or whatever, is very, very good. And the deck is very dirtly. And Client's another dirtly card. Like, you have to take an action to put a bounty on their dude, and then you have to claim it with a separate removal spell. But the deck needed some healing, and Client is a very, very good form of that healing. He's a repeatable source of that healing, which is great, and he works well with the dirtly nature of the deck. Then 3 Lieutenant Charlton, the whole reason I'm not playing Colossus. Charlton is just, he's still a beast. Like, 4-cost 6/6 Sentinel is just very, very good. He uptrades into most 5 drops, which is amazing. Just reveal 4 blue cards. All the cards I want to play are blue anyway. Like, he has no downside in this deck. He is just a very, very strong mid-game roadblock, and you get to flip Dedra the same turn. And, like, I have some games where Dedra and Charlton get 2 hits in each for 6 and 4 respectively. And, like, your opponent's taking 20 damage at that point. Like, they're just gonna die. Like, your first Avenger kills them or whatever. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Chilton in Dedra specifically. And then we've got 2 Palpatine and 2 Snoke. You just need some top-end haymakers. Snoke is very, very good in the meta right now, being able to kill. There's a lot of Carrie Snemmick, Spies, Cobb Vanth. Like, all these, there's a lot of 2 health units in the meta, and there's some weenie spam decks, like, even if the units don't die to Snoke, Snoke basically neutralizes them, which is very good. And then Palpatine is just, like, he does a very similar Snoke impression on some board states where he just kills a bunch of tiny dudes. But he's better versus bigger stuff, like, he can kill a 1/6 health thing. He's got Overwhelm, so he's still good at killing spies. So he's like a side grade to Snoke. Like, he's still good in some of the scenarios where Snoke is, but then he's good in scenarios where Snoke is bad. And some scenarios you'd rather have the repeated aura effect of Snoke compared to the one-time shot that Palpatine gives you. So I just like playing a pair of both. And Dedra, like, this deck draws a lot of cards. This deck draws a lot of cards over the course of the game. So playing some 2-ofs, like, you'll probably see both of them over a course of a game. And you just hopefully draw the one you really needed first. Can't do much about it. That's card games if you don't. And then to round off the units, 2 Avenger. Like, it's a very slim unit package. You really do not need a lot. Like, Dedra and the cheap removal does so much heavy lifting killing the early game that you really just need a couple of efficient late game bombs in the Client and Charlton. Avenger is still like I'm pretty down on Avenger nowadays. It's not as good as it was in its heyday where you blast into Avenger and you just win the game. But it's still a really good top end threat. It threatens repeated removal. It has to be answered. Your opponent has to answer it. Like, it's not the fastest clock. It's not the greatest effect unless your opponent only has one in play. But it's still just a very powerful closer, and there's not a lot of competition at the 9 cost slot. Right. And then to start the events, 3 Daring Raid. This card is so ridiculous with Dedra. Being able to... So, the thing is, there's no 2-cost cards in this deck at all. The only thing you do on turn 1 is they play a unit and then you immediately Dedra ability choose their unit. And they get the choice of dealing it 2 damage or you draw a card. So, your opponent is immediately put in this bad spot of if you draw a card, you're up 1 card, which is amazing. And your Chilton is likely a 6/6. And if they don't let you draw a card, then you just Daring Raid and kill their turn 1 play. On turn 1, and this is completely backbreaking. Now your Power of the Dark Side kills a 3-drop. Now your Takedown kills a 4-drop. Like, it can just cascade where all of the difficulty with hard control sometimes is it was typical that we had to play a 3-cost removal spell to kill their 2-drop, to get the cascade of removal starting to happen to get out of the early game. And Dedra gives you this line to kill a 2-drop on turn 1. And the alternative is, like, your opponent lets you draw a card, which is great for you anyway. So, like, it's just a really, really lose-lose. And having this card, even just the threat of it is very good. It's also unexpected that you can just burn people out with this. Like, if your opponent's just, like, taking domed hits from an Avenger, like, you can just randomly kill them with a Daring Raid that they aren't expecting. That's definitely a niche use case, but that's something it can do. This picks off a Spy for 1 resource. It kills a Kiri's Nemec for 1 resource. Like, it does a very good job of, similar to Dedra, of just, like, threatening these small units. So it's pretty good. Then 2 Restock. 2 is probably overkill. You could probably get away with 1. I'm running 2 nowadays because I like to row 1 if I draw it early and then still hold the second one. The problem is Dedra, like Trench, sometimes you deck yourself. Sometimes your opponent lets you draw so many cards off of the leader ability and you actually don't have a way to kill your opponent that you need to have Restock, so you just win the game when you have no deck. Being able to restock whatever you want. You can restock Blast and just sit there and kill everything your opponents play every turn. You can restock Avengers. You can restock Vigilance and countermill your opponent. Like, you can just do whatever you want once you have no deck. But I like running 2 because, I already said it, like, you really want 1 when you have no deck, and this deck decks itself sometimes, and being able to resource the first one is really nice. The other thing is it's a 1-cost event to burn to Relentless. Like, Relentless is not very popular right now, but if you do play against a blue-green villain deck that sides Relentless, it's definitely clutch to have some cheap events to burn to it, and Restock is definitely one of the better ones, because it's so cheap. Next up is 3 Knowledge and Defense. This is a very, very good card they gave control. We played Make an Opening back in, like, set 1, set 2. That was so bad. Make an Opening. Ideally, you're killing your opponent's turn 1 play. You have nothing to heal if you're playing Make an Opening. But this kills Lurking Typhanum and draws a card. It does a Daring Raid impression of if your opponent shot their dude for 2 damage on turn 1, Knowledge and Defense finishes off their 2/4 and draws a card, which is just insanely efficient. You can just shrink their leader and finish it off with a Dedra swing. Like, it's a very, very flexible card. It's so efficient. And even late game, you can just cycle it for 3 resources and get a better card. So it's just a very, very good card. And if you're playing it on turn 2, it likely means your Dedra's bigger or your Dedra has the raid too, which is very good. And then next, we've got 3 Let's Call It War. I was on Grenade Strike before. I'm still flipping between them. Grenade Strike has the benefit of being 1 cheaper, which definitely comes up sometimes. But Let's Call It War, against these weenie space decks, you know, Han 4, Boba 4, or not Boba 4, Vader 4, like these decks that want to lead double 1-drop. Claim Let's Call It War wipes 95% of their leads. It deals 3 to 1 of their ships and 2 to the other ship. That typically clears them, unless they lead double Republic Y-Wing. And the thing is, you're probably still Dedgering on the first Republic Y-Wing, and they're probably not letting you draw a card. So like 99% of the time, this gives you an outlet to clear these really annoying double 1-drop openers. Like, Dedra as a deck is surprisingly resilient against the early game Swarm. Like, it still falls falter to these Queen Amidala, Carrie Snemec, like those in conjunction. Like, those decks are definitely not easy to win, but the early game Swarm decks like Vader 4 or Han 4, like, they're actually not that difficult. Like, Dedra definitely has the tools to contest those decks. And Dedra in general has such a good early game that it feels really refreshing that it actually has a pretty good aggro matchup in general. And then next is 3 Open Fire. Deal 4 damage for 3 is a great rate, you know. If you just want to kill your opponent's turn 1 play, if you want to snipe a space unit, like, just very, very efficient. And it's nice that it does this, if you Dedra ability, it threatens to deal 6 for 4, which kills much larger things than 2 drops and 3-cost space units. So that's great. Damage or threshold-based removal in general in Dedra feels better because your leader ability gives you this looming threat of like, are you going to let me to draw into a better kill spell, or are you going to put your unit in death range by putting the 2 damage on it and letting me open fire it anyway? That's the goal of Dedra, is to put your opponent in a position where when you activate Dedra ability, they lose either way, and then your opponent can still misplay and choose the choice worse for them. And that's why I think Dedra is also a pretty hard archetype to play against, because it is very difficult knowing whether you're supposed to be letting your opponent draw or deal 2 damage. And it's very easy to just throw games by choosing the wrong mode, which is definitely a benefit to playing the deck. You know, if you play less experienced players, you might just raffle stomp them. And then we've got 3 Power of the Dark Side. It's still so good. We're on a 6 negative attachment package, 3 Entrench, 3 Condemn. So we're not a Merciless Contest. That's too much of an almo with Merciless Contest for my liking. And Merciless Contest kills your own client. Merciless Contest is really bad in this build. You have to like really build for the Merciless Contest and build your early game around it, not run Childs and not run the client, I think. But Power of the Dark Side, it kills leaders. It just, if they have 1 dude in play, you can just kill it, like, unconditionally. Like, and this deck is very good at just removing all the small stuff so your powers hit the big stuff, which is pretty important. Obviously, just a control staple. We got 3 Fell the Dragon and 3 Takedown. Kind of just premium 4-cost removal. Need to kill a small thing? Take down it. Need to kill a big thing? Fell the Dragon it. Pretty self-explanatory. And then next is 3 Vigilance. This deck does win through mill occasionally. Actually, I think since Dedra attacks for 4 in board states where you get to hit your opponent's face with Dedra, because it's like, because your opponent isn't playing ground units, or your opponent doesn't have anything, or your removal already kills it, they're ground units that, like, you do rack up damage on your opponent's base, and sometimes an Avenger or Snoke just, like, kills your opponent in a couple attacks. But the mill win con is definitely still an optionality to the deck, and Vigilance is just so flexible and control. It heals a ton. It kills a guy. It can shield your Chilled Sin. Like, gives you that mill win con. Like, just so many options for 1 deck slot. That is definitely still worth it out of aspect. And I'm going to be sad when my beloved rotates. I'll be playing it in Eternal probably. Like, I'm probably going to rock up to Eternal tournaments with hard control, because, like, Django's going to be everywhere until he gets suspended again. Like, it's just, like, you can't tap my whole board if I have no board. So, to watch out if you're seeing me at an Eternal PQ. But, yeah, Vigilance is great. That's only about halfway through because it's a control deck and we're not playing many non-events. Alright, 3 No Glory. Like, again, it's just a Vanquish effect. Just kill anything. Just point and kill that dude. Sometimes you just need some very unconditional removal. It's nice that it has upsides against, like, Super Laser Attack and Ruthless Trader, the primary ones. And there's numerous other when-defeated abilities. Like, you No Glory carry Snemix occasionally. Like, just getting around your opponent's negative when defeated is a very, very good option to have. Like, I'm not currently on tech. This is actually built for a trilogy. I think I mentioned it briefly. So tech are in my Monohan one, which is in that trilogy. So I'm not playing tech, but you totally could play one tech. That is totally reasonable. And I mentioned this because I think it would be really funny to No Gloria carries Namek and disclose tech in a red card to get the spy. But yeah, No Glory is amazing. And then 3 Blast, where hard control deck, we need a way to reset the board, and Blast is still the best way to do that. Alright, and then to wrap off the deck, 3 Entrench and 3 Condemn. Like, these are just very, very cheap ways to pseudo-kill a unit. Like, you entrench a unit either in space. If you entrench a unit in space, it's not attacking. You're not playing an Avenger into it. If you entrench a unit on the ground, don't do that when you have a client or Chilton or whatever that can run over, ideally. But it just says kill a unit if I have no units in that arena. Like, they just get to sit in a corner and not do anything. It's very, very powerful to have an effect that does that for 2 resources. And you can entrench Dedra. And, like, if you have more cards in hand than your opponent, now this attacks for 7. This kills, like, so many of the ground units for a 4-flip leader. Like, that's definitely, I do that occasionally if it lines up. And it's very, very powerful when it does line up. And then Condemn. Condemn almost feels better than Entrench nowadays because you don't have to completely give up the arena. It does a very similar role to Entrench of, like, there's a ridiculous amount of blue villain cards in this deck. You will always have the disclose cost for this. So any unit with 6 or less power just gets completely blanked by it. Units a bit bigger than that get almost completely neutralized. So that's probably not even worth the action attacking unless that is like your complete win con is dealing 2 over like 12 turns. Which ideally you're not letting your opponent put you in a position where that's a good option for them. But and then this one also is better on certain leaders. Like, this card, like, almost solos Han 1. Like, if you put this on Han 1, it essentially makes him a 0/6 that can't ramp. Because it removes his ability. So, like, you can just sit here and, I think I'm understanding that right. If I'm not, shout at me in the comments, because it's 2 on attack abilities. Maybe they might get to choose the order. Not 100% certain that. But if it does work that way, it's obviously nuts versus on 1. But it is another negative upgrade that can go on leaders and just pseudo kill leaders, even if it isn't as good as against Han 1 as I thought it was. But yeah, just 2 very, very efficient ways to pseudo kill units and save your better removal for better units. And that's the deck. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out. It helps grow the channel, and it makes YouTube like me more. I think that's all I've got for this video. I will see you in the next one.